You know all those apps and websites you use every single day? Ever stop and wonder what's actually powering them behind the scenes? Well, chances are it's something a lot like Amazon EC2. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this fundamental piece of the cloud. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll see why it's the engine driving so much of the internet.
So here's our game plan. To really get what EC2 is all about, we'll first take a quick trip back in time to see the problems it was built to solve. Then, we'll dive straight into what EC2 actually is, we'll take it apart to see its key components, see how it's used in the real world, and finally, we'll zoom out to see where it fits in the grand scheme of things.
To really appreciate why EC2 was such a revolution, you first have to understand just how painful things used to be. So let's rewind the clock to a time before the cloud, when getting a server up and running was a very different ballgame.
I mean, just look at the difference here. On the left, you got the old way. You had to shell out a ton of money up front for a big physical machine. If you needed more power for, say, a holiday sale, you were looking at weeks, maybe even months of waiting for new hardware. And what if your traffic went down? Well, tough luck. You were stuck paying for a very expensive, very powerful paperweight. Now, look at the EC2 way. It's like turning on a light switch. You get the power you need, exactly when you need it, and you can turn it off the second you're done. This isn't just an improvement, it's a completely different way of thinking.
Okay, so that was the before. We've seen the problem. Now let's get into the solution. What exactly is Amazon EC2?
The key word you have to remember here is rent. You're not buying anything physical. You are renting a virtual computer that lives inside one of Amazon's massive global data centers. And that elastic part of the name? Think of it like a rubber band. You can stretch it out to handle a massive amount of work, and then let it shrink right back down when things are quiet. And the best part? You only pay for the size of the rubber band at any given moment.
Now you're going to hear this term instance thrown around all the time. Don't let it throw you off. It's really just the official AWS name for one of these virtual servers once it's up and running. It's your own personal computer sitting in the cloud, just waiting for you to tell it what to do.
And you have total control over this computer's life. You can start it up, you can reboot it, and here's the really big one. You can stop it. The second you hit stop, you stop paying for the compute power. It's basically like being able to pause your electricity bill whenever you want. And then, when you're completely done with it for good, you can terminate it, which is the digital version of throwing it away.
All right, so we've got our virtual computer, our instance. But what's it actually made of? What are the digital nuts and bolts you have to put together to bring one of these things to life?
Well, it really boils down to 5 key ingredients. Let's walk through each one, because once you understand these 5 things, you've pretty much cracked the code of EC2.
First up, you need a blueprint. That's the AMI, or Amazon Machine Image. The easiest way to think about it is like a master installation disk for your computer. It tells AWS what operating system to install, whether that's Linux or Windows or something else, and it can even come bundled with pre-installed software. It's the foundation for everything.
Next, you've got to pick the engine. The instance type is all about raw power. How much CPU? How much memory or RAM? It's basically the difference between choosing a small scooter and a V8 sports car. Now, when you're just getting started, something like a T2.micro is perfect. It's like a reliable family car. It'll get you where you need to go, and even better, it's often free to test drive.
Of course, every computer needs a hard drive, right? In the cloud, that's called EBS, or Elastic Block Store. Now, the absolutely crucial thing to remember here is that this storage is persistent. That means if you stop your instance to save money, your data doesn't just vanish. It stays there, safe and sound, waiting for you to start the instance back up again.
Okay, this part is really clever. Instead of a simple password, EC2 uses something called a key pair for security. Think of it like this. AWS puts a unique, special lock on the door of your instance. That's the public key. You, and only you, have the one-of-a-kind key that can open that lock. That's the private key. You have to guard that private key file, because if you lose it, there is no forgot my password link. You are locked out for good.
And the final piece of the puzzle is the security group. I want you to think of this as your instance's own personal bouncer. It stands at the front door and decides exactly who gets in and who gets turned away. And by default, its answer is no to everyone. You have to give it a list and explicitly tell it which doors or ports to open for specific kinds of internet traffic. The golden rule here is simple. Be paranoid. Only open what you absolutely need to.
And this table gives you a perfect example of what that looks like. You might tell the bouncer, hey, let people in through door number 22 if they want to securely log in. Or open doors 80 and 443 so people can visit the website I'm hosting. Every other one of the thousands of doors, they stay locked tight.
Okay, so we've built our virtual computer, at least in theory. Now for the practical stuff. How does the pricing actually work, and what are people doing with all this power?
This is one of the most game-changing parts about the cloud. You pay as you go, often down to the second. You get a bill for how long your instance was running, how powerful of an engine you chose, and how much storage you used. And remember that magic trick? The moment you stop the instance, that expensive meter for computing power stops ticking. You only continue to pay a tiny amount for the storage your data sits on.
Now, AWS has a few different ways to pay, but when you're starting out, on-demand is your best friend. There are no upfront costs, no long-term contracts. You just pay for what you use, when you use it, and you can walk away at any time. It gives you the ultimate freedom to experiment without getting locked into anything.
So what do people actually build with this? The short answer is pretty much everything. EC2 is the true workhorse of the cloud. It's running the backend for mobile apps, it's serving up millions of websites, it's processing data in the background, and it's where developers build and test new ideas. If you can imagine a piece of software, you can probably run it on EC2.
All right, for our last section, let's zoom out. Let's pull the camera back a bit and see where EC2 really fits into the bigger cloud ecosystem. This brings us to a really fundamental choice you have to make in the cloud today. With EC2, you're the mechanic. You get the whole car, you get to tune the engine, you're responsible for maintenance, you have total control. On the other side, you have something called serverless, which is more like a ride-sharing service. You just tell it where to go, and it handles the car, the gas, the maintenance, everything. It's a classic trade-off. EC2 gives you ultimate control, while serverless gives you ultimate convenience.
And that mechanic analogy leads us perfectly to this idea. EC2 gives you an incredible amount of power and flexibility. But that power comes with responsibility. You're the one in charge of security updates, patching the software, and making sure your server doesn't fall over if it gets too busy. It is not a set-it-and-forget-it kind of service.
So, as you jump in, please keep these golden rules in mind. Start with the free tier so you can learn without worrying about a bill. Get in the habit of stopping instances when you're done for the day. It's the easiest way to save money. Be super careful with your security groups and never open ports you don't need. Use things like IAM rules for better security. And finally, keep an eye on your usage so there are no surprises at the end of the month.
And this right here is the most important thing I want you to walk away with. The concepts we talked about today, virtual computers, paying as you go, virtual firewalls, these aren't just EC2 features. They are the absolute fundamental building blocks of the entire cloud. If you can get your head around EC2, you understand the very heart of how our modern digital world works.
So, there you have it. We went from the old, slow world of physical servers to this incredible, elastic world in the cloud. We've seen how to build a virtual computer from its basic parts and why it all matters. The power to build almost anything you can imagine is now literally at your fingertips, just a few clicks away. So, the only question left is, what are you going to build?